and welcome to episode 29 of The List Makers. I'm Dave.
And I'm Rob.
And we're going to dive into this one because tonight our topic, drawn from the Hat of Rassilon, is top 5 1960s stories. Rob and I are both going to make a list, then we're going to have a chat about it. Rob, it's your turn to go first, but I'm going to ask you straight out now.
Yes.
Now, you know that this is an era that I love.
Yes.
You know some of the stories that I love.
Yes.
How many snaps do you reckon we've got this time?
I want to say at least 2, but I'm going to push the boat out and say 3.
I reckon we could easily have 3 as well.
Really? Okay. Because listeners, we don't confer before the show.
No, we absolutely don't. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about. We have all of the 1960s to talk about. Rob, what's your list?
Dave, before we start, I will just comment too that in this list, I've picked stories that anyone can go and watch properly, not animations or recons or audios. I set that as a little challenge for myself and also to help me sort of tighten up the list in some ways.
Okay, the probability of us having 3 snaps just dropped quite a bit.
Oh, I think I know what you've picked then. Anyway, in at number 5, I've gone with the Romans. And I'm going to start with this one because it's not just an historical story, but it's a funny one too. So not only do we get a staple here of the First Doctor's era being an historical, it's also one that's no hardship to watch either. So that's a win-win. And although the actor's feelings shouldn't come into what I pick here, I do note that Hartnell particularly loved this as it let him do comedy. It's a favourite of William Russell too. There's just a good feeling around this story, Dave. And again, it's an historical you can watch. It exists. It's not Marco Polo, it's not The Massacre, and it's not The Mythmakers in that respect, even though I love all of those stories too.
Fair enough.
In at number 4, I've got The Tomb of the Cybermen. This might surprise some people because there has been this kind of perceived backlash. Well, maybe backlash is too strong a word, but there's been an idea of pushback on this one in recent times. Like it's not as good as people thought, even though it's maintained its position in DWM polls and such. We were talking about this on Twitter just the other day, Dave.
We were.
Anyway, I remember when it was found, it was like, oh God, oh Jesus Christ, they've found Tomb. And maybe some of that excitement still lives within me. It's excitement that a new fan today wouldn't have. They just weren't around when that happened. When it happened, it was seriously big news. But I genuinely think outside of that this is a really ambitious, interesting 60s adventure. I thought that at the time. I still think it now. I also do love Cybermen, which some listeners might know. But yeah, look, the whole thing just resonates with me. So draw a line under that, Tomb of the Cybermen. In at number 3, I've got the Dalek Invasion of Earth. I can't talk Cybermen without talking Daleks, and indeed I can't talk the 1960s without talking Daleks, especially given that whole small matter of Dalek mania and all that. So as much as I love the chase, and obviously the Dalek master plan is sprawling but missing. Do you remember my criteria?
I do.
This one is just, wow. It's no longer the Daleks on their home planet, somewhere out there in time and space. This is Daleks on Earth. It's such an ambitious story. I love it. It's almost like a B-movie in some ways, with aliens coming to Earth and wreaking havoc. So, look, we're truly spoiled for choice with 60s Dalek stories, but this is going to be it for me on this list. In at number 2, I've got The Invasion. And I'm being a bit naughty and slipping in another Cyberman story to my list. And not only that, but this one's partially missing too. But it's so...
You really wanted to have this one, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And it's so different to Tomb, so it's not a retread of the same thing. We're in contemporary locations here. We have the rise of electronics in the real world as a sort of theme. We have Unit. We have what some like to say is a first run at the Pertwee era. It's an amazing thing to watch. So without hesitation, even though it's slightly, ever so much, a little bit missing, I think this one lands very solidly in the number 2 position.
Your number 1, I don't know where you're going to go because all the obvious ones don't meet your criteria. So I'm really fascinated. Go for it.
I surprised myself by picking this one, Dave, but when I picked it, it seemed so obvious. I wanted another Pat story. And here we have, sitting on the shelf, this huge, sprawling epic, which I can watch more easily than a 6-parter. How does that work, Dave? I am, of course, talking about the War Games.
I was writing it in as you were describing it.
Okay.
I knew exactly where that was going.
10 episodes of this, and I feel less fatigued than a 6-parter from the Pertwee or Baker era, and that's not hyperbole. I'm being honest. It just rattles along, lots happening in each episode. Then we get to the Time Lords at the end, and that's very interesting stuff. The way Zoe and Jamie depart is a real gut punch, a real New Who sort of thing to do, actually. And so for the fact it's very watchable, and the fact it's epic, and the fact it introduces us to the Doctor's people at long last, and the fact it's the last hurrah of the black and white era, I can't go past putting the War Games in at number 1.
Lovely.
Thank you. How many snaps did we have?
We had 2.
2. There you go. Almost 3.
Yeah, almost 3. And look, 2 of your others were in my list of runners-up to talk about, so there is a fair bit of overlap there.
Okay.
But onto my list. Now, when I put together and make a list for the list makers, there is a part of me that sort of wants to make sure there's a bit of variety in there. And I do sort of look and go, have I covered all the different aspects of this topic and gone in some different places, and maybe that's a good reason to put that on and not that, and all the rest of it. And this one, I looked at my list and I just thought, it's a very obvious and very boring list in some ways, but it's mine, and I'm just going with the heart. So we'll find out what that says about me in a moment.
Oh, your heart, not Hartnell.
No, well,
not like the Pert and the Heart and
no.
The
Although there is plenty of Hartnell in there.
Okay.
At number 5, the first of our snaps, it is Troughton's Tomb of the Cybermen.
Nice.
This is one of the easiest Doctor Who stories to watch.
Yes.
I put on Tomb of the Cybermen and I am just engrossed. I'm drawn into that adventure. The way that it starts outside with that wonderful location filming, then you get into the tombs, and then you start to explore, and there's stuff in the shadows and everything. And look, I can remember when we got the Cybermen book that had colour paintings, illustrations of the inside of the tombs, and I just thought, this looks spectacular, and it looks great on screen. And then you've got that wonderful episode 2 cliffhanger of the Cybermen emerging. You've got great characters. Look, it's not perfect. Toberman is a very dodgy character. We won't talk too much about that. We'll acknowledge it, but move on. I will defend any plot hole that people put up in this story. I just think that it's just so great to watch. I love it.
Brilliant.
Number 4 is my second Troughton, and that is Evil of the Daleks.
Yeah.
It is available on animation now, and look, this to me is the culmination of the 60s Dalek stories. It is a proper epic that starts in 60s London, goes to the Victorian era, and then ends off over at Skaro. Each element of the story doesn't outstay its welcome. It keeps moving on and on and on. There's a real feeling here that the Daleks maybe are going to win this one. They are in control for most of the story, really right up until the last moment. There's that wonderful relationship between the Doctor and Jamie, which is just one of the best characterised of the run. And then you end with the visit to Skaro, the epic Emperor Dalek, possibly my favourite cliffhanger at the end of part 6, and then the Dalek Civil War. What more do you want from a story?
It's pretty epic.
It is. Number 3 is one that I think listeners will probably have guessed was going to be on my list, and that is Marco Polo, the first of the historicals, and another truly epic story that takes us halfway across a continent as we explore China, or Cathay as it is in those days, and end up at Peking. It's so poetically written. It's so brilliantly acted. It has such wonderful characters. The regulars all get a chance to shine. Tagana is a wonderful villain. Marco is a wonderful anti-hero. Kublai Khan is hilarious. It's just so wonderful. And what we can see of the production looks absolutely gorgeous. So it is my favourite of the historicals. Makes it a number 3. Number 2 is the Daleks' Master Plan. How good is this? This is space opera. This is the Daleks with an army across a universe. This is just a new adventure every week. This is Nicholas Courtney and Jean Marsh. This is the jungles of Kemble. And this is that final terrifying finale of the story as the Time Destructor is put on. And they pull no punches in this one. This is just properly exciting adventure for 12 weeks. Number 1, it's my favourite Dalek story. It's my favourite Hartnell story, and that is the Dalek invasion of Earth. It's a snap from you, Rob.
Yes.
What more can I say? But again, this just feels like a proper adventure. It is grim. It is nasty. It evokes all of that World War II type vibe with Daleks then over the top of it. It's a proper invasion of the world. It's not just an invasion of London, it's a proper invasion of the world, but it's got that wonderful London filming in it. Again, great characters, great regulars, the relationship between David and Susan that just grows over time, the Black Dalek, the mercenaries, and then that wonderful ending with the Hartnell monologue at the end and the goodbye to Susan. Just from start to finish, it just again draws me in.
Nice, Dave.
So look, my list is a lot of Daleks and a lot of Cybermen.
Mm-hmm. Mine had its share of it too.
So look, I think those stories with those classic monsters are classics for reasons.
They define the 60s, as do historicals, and we got some of those in as well.
Yeah, and look, you had the Romans on your list. I had Marco Polo on my list. Had I had a sixth, I would have had the Aztecs. I really wanted to put the Aztecs in there, and I didn't cheat by having six, but if I had it, would have been the Aztecs. On my list of honourable mentions, I also had the Romans. I could very easily have had the Mythmakers. So there are some really good historicals in there. But yeah, I think that you're right. The 60s is defined by those monsters, and I think there is a feeling, particularly with the Daleks, that when the Daleks come on board, the show wants to do its best. They go and get Douglas Camfield to direct it if they can. They go and spend a bit of extra money. They go and do some location filming. They get a big, a guest cast like, hey, do you want to come do one with the Daleks? It's going to be big. Everyone's going to watch it. Yeah, there's a real sense of everybody rising for the occasion when the Daleks come on. Another one on my shortlist that was a snap with you was Invasion. Again, If I was just doing Troughton's, the next story would have been The Invasion.
Oh, how can it not be? It's bloody brilliant. But to go back to the Daleks, I mean, I mentioned this small thing we had called Dalek Mania. I mean, that can't be understated, and that would be underpinning their reasoning for pushing the boat out on these stories. They know what an effect this is having out there. It's like bloody Beatlemania. People are nutty for these things. There are all sorts of confectionaries and toys, and it's extraordinary. I mean, we can sort of look in the history books. That sounds very grand, doesn't it? But I mean Doctor Who reference books and things like that. We can look at pictures of even William Hartnell sitting at home with a bunch of toy Daleks on his coffee table and things like this. But I still don't think we can appreciate what it would have been like to have been a school kid in the UK in, say, 1964, 65, and just thinking about Daleks and playing with Daleks and all of that. Like, what an extraordinary thing. They just ingrained themselves in UK culture, pop culture, and they've just remained there. Even when the show went off the air, everyone still knew what a Dalek was. Yeah, and when you think about it, it's sort of hard to believe there were 6 Dalek stories in 4 years.
Yeah. And they were all lengthy ones. Nothing's a 4-parter there. But that almost pales next to the Cybermen, who get 5 stories in 2 and a bit years. Yeah, they really go overboard there to the degree that Pertwee doesn't get a Cyberman story. Yeah, but look, no, I mean they are classics. They are era defining, and that's really important. I'm really glad you got the War Games in, and number one, that's a. I'm not saying it's a big call. It's a wonderful call, but it's a what's the word? It's an epic call. Well, epic is the right word. Thank you for the segue, because when you think of epics, you think Dalek's Master Plan, but it doesn't exist, so it can't make my list. What is the next epic after that? It has to be the War Games, And when you throw in all those things I was saying at the very end, that it is the last hurrah of the black and white era. It is the first time we meet the Time Lords. Although it felt very funny to put it there, it also felt very right to put it there once I put it there. I thought this is like the culmination of the 60s. If we're talking the 60s, this is literally the culmination of the 60s, Dave, and it's a big epic story. So I felt very comfortable once I had the thought. Once I had the thought, I couldn't not have the thought, if that makes sense. Look, absolutely. And it does the same thing a number of the epic stories we've talked about do, whether it's Master Plan, Marco Polo, which is the story does move, as in physically move. Yes. You start off thinking we've arrived in World War One. Okay, the show's doing World War One. That's fair enough. That's cool. And then suddenly the general's got a scanner behind his portrait, and suddenly something's arriving and it's making a TARDIS-like sound, and suddenly there are Romans, and okay, and then suddenly we're in the headquarters of the aliens, and then it just sort of builds and builds and it grows and grows. We get more characters, and when they start to do the takedown of the aliens, it feels as though this is a proper army coming in, with attacks in all the different time zones, all being coordinated.
Yeah.
And then by sort of part 8, you start to get this feeling this is getting bigger and bigger. The Warlord arrives, and suddenly it's like, wow, this is getting serious. And then the stuff with the War Chief and the Doctor, and then, no, you can't send for the Time Lords. No, think of what they'll do. And it's like the Doctor's sending for the Time Lords? And then there's half an episode of just trying to escape them, and suddenly you're on Gallifrey. So at no point do you really plod along, just sort of chilling out. Look, maybe there's a little bit too long in the American Civil War zone in the middle, but that's nothing compared to, as you said, a few of the Pertwee six-parters.
You know what scene I love?
Yeah.
Running back to the TARDIS in slow motion and not making it.
Yes.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, that is one. And Dudley Simpson just pulls out all the stops for that. He obviously has popped down to the local church to get the organ or something. And, just absolutely wonderful, absolutely epic. And I think that it's one that the more people who see it, the more people love it. I think that's really, really clear.
Yeah, I think the length might put some people off. Like, they've thought of maybe a few ropey 60s stories they've watched, and they think, oh, God, I struggled with that 4-parter the other week. This is 10. Oh, my God. And it may be something they never want to watch, but it's absolutely one to watch. Again, I watch this easier than a 6-parter. Easily.
Yeah, no, it's very easy to just keep watching. I think all the nominations we have on are. At the other end of the scale, though, my final honourable mention I just want to have is The Rescue. I'm extremely fond of that. I think it's wonderfully directed. It's probably the best 45 minutes of Hartnell. I just really, really love it. And it gives us Vicky as well.
I wish there were more 60s 2-parters. I really do. I would love that. Like how in the Davo era, you've got these 3 2-parters that often go under the radar too. People forget there are 3 2-parters in Davo's era. Yes, there are. Yeah, Imagine if the 60s had 3 or 4 of them as well.
Yeah, but the Davo 2-parters are all terrible, Rob.
Hang on.
That's not the topic tonight.
Got a soft spot for Black Orchid, but we won't go into that.
No. Look, Rob, I think we've got there a really good representation of what the 60s was and what really stood out for it. As you said, it's the big historicals, it's the epics, and it's monsters.
Yeah, and with my list, you can pull them off the shelf and watch them today, kids.
Yes. You can't do that with mine, I'm sorry.
No, not all of your list anyway.
No, that's fair enough. Look, I've really enjoyed that. We've talked about some real favourite stories of mine, but it is time to reach into Turlo's Hat of Wrestling again.
Okay, let's do it.
And we have got, this one was sent in by listener Bill McCann III.
Oh, from the US, yeah?
From the US, and it is top 5 production members you'd repair. Not repair as in put back together, repair as in pair 2 different production people up together.
Ooh, from any era.
From any era, mixing and matching production people. That's a really interesting topic, Bill, and I have no idea where I'm going to go, but I've got a month to think about it.
As do I. I'm going to give this some thought.
I'm glad. I wouldn't want you to wander in spontaneously, Rob. That would be dangerous. Especially
what are you doing tonight, Dave? Yeah.
Especially with this topic. Look, that's been fun. I've enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to next month. Until then, I've been Dave.
I've been Rob.
And we'll make some more lists soon.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.